Good Shabbos, everyone. More than ever, I wish we could all be here together. We all need each other's company at this time. And I know one day soon we'll again be together as a congregational family here in our building. But tonight, as so many of us watch from home, I think we would all agree that without question, 2020 has not been the year any of us wanted it to be. We've seen a global pandemic, economic distress, and now racial tension, and it's only June. The senseless killing of George Floyd and the ensuing protests have gripped our nation. We're experiencing widespread outrage, anger, sadness, and reflection here in Houston and across the United States. Words cannot adequately describe the strong emotions that arise from George Floyd's senseless death. We feel for those who are in pain and are acutely aware that we must continue our struggle for meaningful and enduring change to overcome acts of racism and violence that too often corrode our communities. But until we are together again, what can we as concerned Americans, as Jews, do to help? We may be aware of the famous verse from our Torah, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. But what none of us know is why is Tzedek repeated in the phrase, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof? Would it not have been sufficient for the Torah to declare, Tzedek, Tirdof? Justice you shall pursue. Why the repeat of the word justice? For centuries, our rabbis have sought an answer. I love one possible reason. The Torah repeats the term to convey the idea that the pursuit of justice is not only the responsibility of our elected officials, our courts, and our police, but it is also the responsibility of every single individual. It is also our responsibility. As we're taught in the name of Rabbi, a 4th century scholar, quote, if a person is neither a scholar nor a teacher, nor known for observing all the ritual commandments, but stands up to protest against evil, such a person is considered a blessing. God knows we need more of us to be those blessings now more than ever. But yes, I must admit to a sense of despair, of fatigue, as I witness the political climate of our country. I resonate these days with the line of Lily Tomlins, who said, no matter how cynical you become, it's never enough to keep up. We can be tempted to throw up our arms, turn away, and ask, what can I do that will really make any difference? My friends, our Jewish tradition takes hold of us and loudly declares, you cannot walk away. God commands us to pursue justice, even if the attainment of justice seems so remote. Don't give up, our ancestors call out to us. Your actions, no matter how small they may seem, can make a difference. Before I give some suggestions on steps I believe you can take, I want to address some possible excuses. 2 excuses I'm not even sure we realize we use to justify to ourselves to just move on with our lives and not do anything to help. Number 1, we may be tempted to think, I'm not black. What happens to them doesn't affect me. Why should I care? Yes, it may be convenient to think such things. We have enough on our own plates, especially right now. But let us not forget that many non-Jews in 1930s Germany thought the same. Too many said, I'm not Jewish, so they turned away. Our recent history demands that we as Jews speak out against racism when we see it, whether it originates from elected officials, from neighbors, from friends, and from the police. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Or as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel reminded us, morally speaking, there is no limit to the concern one must feel for the suffering of human beings, that indifference to evil is worse than evil itself, that in a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. What happened to fellow Americans like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, and so many more? What happened to them, it does affect you and me. When police officers murder them, they also destroy a part of us. Our fundamental Jewish belief is that all life is precious. This idea started to change the world when God chose our people over 3,000 years ago. Good people everywhere continue to champion the ideal that all life has value, no matter one's religion, no matter one's sexual orientation, no matter the color of one's skin. But when someone hurts another human being because they don't see them as an equal, they devalue life. They bring us all a step closer to a time when we no longer see the humanity in others. Rather, we only see the differences that divide us. They bring us to a place none of us wants to go. Will we help bring our society to a better place? Or will we walk away, uninterested, because we think the killing of an innocent man in Minnesota has nothing to do with our own lives? The choice is clear. Will we stand up, or we will just walk away? Rabbi Joachim Prince once said, the most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. Yes, I know we won't solve the centuries-old societal injustice and conflict today or this week. We, as the extended Jewish community, we ourselves will not bring peace to Houston or the nation. But as my friend Rabbi Adam Kligfeld commented this week, we also cannot refrain from our duty to do the right and the good, to listen to others' pain, and to call out injustice when it is obvious. We cannot stand idly by and wait for others to do tikkun, the sacred role of fixing what is broken. Number two, a second excuse I've heard before, and I heard again this week. The awful looting and destruction we have seen over the past week just demonstrates that to keep law and order, police are justified when they cross the line. My friends, that's not how a Jew should think. Yes, there are many, many good police officers out there. I believe an overwhelming majority of police officers are good. They deserve more pay, more benefits, and more gratitude from all of us. We cannot forget just how difficult their job is. They risk their lives every day for you and me. But when they cross the line, by killing or injuring a fellow citizen, another human being, because they see them as different, then they're no longer worthy of being a policeman or policewoman. They are a criminal, and we must call for justice. And yes, there are dangerous extremists on the extreme left and on the extreme right who have hijacked a just cause to riot, to stir civil unrest. They have destroyed businesses, attacked innocents, and vandalized monuments, churches, and synagogues. As rioters threatened his Seattle neighborhood this past Monday night, my best childhood friend was afraid to leave his family's home. They stayed up all night praying rioters would not target their street. Thank God in the end, they did not come to his neighborhood, but they did destroy other areas of Seattle and in many other cities across our country, hurting many innocent shop owners and policemen. Of course, none of that is acceptable. We should condemn all of it. Rioting and looting is never justified. And tonight we also pray for all those who've been affected by the rioting and looting and the injured policemen and women out there. But the violence is not the work of those who are trying to peacefully and rightfully protest against the malicious persistence of racism in American society. The rioting, unfortunately, is undermining and overtaking a very worthy cause. Instead of talking about police violence, we're talking more and more about the violence that makes for dramatic media images. That's not justice. And I know the national media doesn't help. They focus in on rioters in New York and Los Angeles, in Washington, D.C., not on the 60,000 Houstonians who held an incredibly peaceful march here in Houston on Tuesday. Therefore, let us not forget, there is a world of difference between those who are rioting and those who are peacefully protesting. If we make the mistake of conflating the two as an excuse not to press for real change in our society, then we're not acting as Jews should. We're just part of the problem, not the solution. At a memorial for George Floyd, his brother Terrence articulated the family's hopes for peaceful protests. He led the crowd through a series of chants, including peace on the left, justice on the right, to say the two, peace and justice, must go hand in hand. He then summed it up well. He said, if I'm not over here blowing up stuff, if I'm not over here messing up my community, then what are y'all doing? Nothing, because that's not going to bring my brother back at all. So let's do this another way. Can we help him and so many other good people in our country in the peaceful way to make real change, positive change? Here are some steps we can take. We can volunteer or donate to anti-white supremacy organizations that, of course, not only target Black Americans, but they hate you and me just as much. And can we volunteer and donate to these organizations like NAACP, the Southern Poverty Law Center, United Negro College Fund, Black Youth Project 100, or of course the ADL? 2, Google whether your city or town currently employs evidence-based police de-escalation and racial bias training. 3, Google whether your local police department currently outfits all on-duty police officers with a body-worn camera and requires that body-worn camera be turned on immediately when officers respond to a police call. If they don't, write to your city or town government and policy chief and police chief to advocate for those steps. Another thing we can do, don't just post nice things on social media about fighting racism, but sign petitions, organize anti-racist campaigns, and donation drives for worthy organizations that can help fight racism. Commit to actively participate in peaceful protest. That's a right all of us as Americans have. On our Beth Yeshurun website, we have posted many resources for you to check out. Resources of books, podcasts, articles you can use to educate yourself and your children on what you can do to be part of the solution. I love one that we posted. It's this wonderful resource that gives you steps you can take every day, just 10 minutes a day, to watch, to read, to listen, and to take actions. And by doing so, over the course of this month, over the course of June, you can learn how to be an active ally of the Black community. One more step I'm taking. Last night, I started reading the book, White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism, written by Robin J. DiAngelo. It's the New York Times best-selling book exploring the counterproductive reactions white people have when their assumptions about race are challenged, and how these reactions maintain racial inequality. I, too, have a lot to learn. At Beth Yeshurun, we'll also explore ways we can make a difference together as a community. With this great contacts in the Black community, Rabbi Morgan is working on upcoming discussions and dialogues with Black leaders in our city. Stay tuned for more information. In the coming months, we'll continue to explore other ways we can do better. So tonight, I'm asking all of us to pledge ourselves to take actions to help rid our country of the centuries-old scourge that is racism. Now let us pray together. On your screens, you'll see a prayer written by one of my colleagues, Rabbi Lori Shapiro, and let us read that prayer together, you from your homes, and tonight here from our sanctuary. Oh God, may our tears remind us of our collective humanity. May our call for justice be reflected through our actions. May we pray not only through our feet, but through our hearts. May we see ourselves reflected in the eyes of the other. May we recognize that we are all children held by a numinous presence, one that is known through cycles of death and birth, destruction and renewal, transgression and forgiveness. And may America rebuild upon a new covenant, one cultivated in the soils of freedom and justice that take root and rise, blowing in winds of love. George Floyd, you did not die in vain. The 100,000, you are not forgotten. Our first responders, Godspeed. Our children, forgive us. With love, blessings of safety, and prayers for justice for all.